All right, guys, we're back for another episode of A Few Points from Perfect, and it's a little bit different here. We're in a different location. We're down a co-host. I have no idea what episode this is, so just check the title. And we got a pretty cool guest this time. It's Mr. Officer Hoover.
Hey, hello.
I always,
Thank you.
always call you the Facebook famous.
Yeah.
But you got more followers on Facebook than like all of us combined.
Well, I don't know. Some of that's hate mail too, so I think they just follow so they can hate, which
like,
maybe
like I said on one of the last ones. I mean, comments are comments. Good or bad.
Exactly.
I don't know
exactly.
quite how Facebook works, but I know in the YouTube world we take what we can get.
Well, then I need to go back and recount my comments and maybe quit hiding some. Then.
So real quick, let's just kind of jump in. For those who don't know, who is Officer Hoover? How'd you become Officer Hoover? Where'd you start? A little family history background. You can go as far back or skip as far forward as you want.
All right. Well, we'll skip the whole my mom met my dad scenario. So we'll skip that and we'll go straight into.
I think we know how you were made. We just need to get to the point.
Well, yeah, that's why I said we'll skip that, you know. Gosh, I know that part. But anyway, originally from Santa Claus, Indiana. Currently living up near Terre Haute, Indiana. My wife's originally from up there, so a few years back she wanted to move up there. So if I could stay doing the DOT side of things, that's why I said not a problem. Let's go ahead and move. Been on the Indiana State Police now for a little over 16 years. Of course, having a father that was on the Indiana State Police, it was one of those kind of going into the family business type things.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's an important thing too. I've got to know you and your family very well over the years, but I think that's something important to point out is your dad was an ex-Marine?
Yes. Yeah.
So he served, and obviously we thank him for his service. And then he was on the state police force for
33 years.
Yeah, he was on there for a good year. So you're very familiar with public service and law enforcement and military life a little bit. And,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Perfect childhood growing up. There was never any discipline in that household. But no,
I know your dad very well, and I agree with that statement. But I also know your mom, and I'm going to disagree with that.
Well, yeah. Well, you take one side, take the other side. But no, and really though, you've known him his softer years, so
I've heard stories.
Yeah. But anyway, no. But yeah, so I'm kind of a second generation. Went kind of in the family business, but I'm a little bit different in the fact that there are stories of him hating on trucks. And I do recall a stop one time, and an old truck driver asked me, he goes, "Do you know that old Hoover guy?" And I said, "Yeah, I've heard of him." Of course, my nameplate was covered up, and he had no clue who I was. And he goes, "Yeah, we've been trying to figure out for years why he hates trucks so much." One guy said maybe a truck ran over his favorite ball or ran over his puppy or his bicycle. So,
you know, Mike, it's so true.
Yeah, so he just, yeah. So I've kind of taken a different approach when it comes to trucks and CMVs, and I try to go a little more of a positive route.
Well, I think in Mike's defense, I'm going to take Mike's side on this. I think a lot of his approach to stuff was the military background and training. Everything is very black and white. If I say this, you're going to do this.
Oh, absolutely. And that's just, you look back when, he got on in 78 and we look back in the last 10, 15 years since I've been on, just the way society's changed towards, law enforcement and this and that. And it was a lot more wilder time back then. It was, hey, if something could start up and haul 80,000, it was going to do it, whether it had brakes and going a little bit back through that family history and finding old photographs here recently. And he worked a lot of bad crashes.
Yeah.
A lot of car fatalities, and just being on that side of things, us as first responders. And unfortunately, the trucks get a bad name, but
I think that's one thing worth mentioning, though, is, every Joe Blow going up and down the road, whenever you get stopped, we don't see that on a day-to-day basis like you guys do. So whenever you get on us for putting our seatbelt on or making sure our brakes are adjusted, 2 days ago you may have seen a life that could have been saved if those things were done.
Exactly. And and that's where a little bit of that breakdown is that, you know, and I know, you know, a few years ago, accidents can happen, and it impacts a lot of different people, and we take those things with us. I mean, we were sitting at breakfast this morning, and a couple first responders, you know, one another one of your guests here later on, you know, he works in a service background and sitting there talking about accidents and crashes and that stuff. It sticks with anybody, and especially for us day to day, it sticks with us. And you got your ones that choose to internalize that and never really vocalize it. You got your ones that tend to vocalize it. Then you got your ones like me that, hey, if I can go out and make the roadways a lot safer.
How can you turn that into a positive?
Exactly. And I choose to make the roadways safer by informing people. And especially, you know, any YouTube video we do together, any comment like that, any way to spark a little bit of getting people to kind of slow down and think. And you mentioned Facebook and social media, and it's just amazing how much in the last few years it's really taken off. Because and when I talk to people and do different things, it's, you know, I can stop and do a roadside inspection and be with one driver and me for 30 to 40 minutes and make an impact on him. But then when I share a picture on Facebook and it's shared 100,000 views, I look at it as that's 100,000 people that are going to look for that dry powdery rust.
Well, that's also 100,000 more people whose lives you may have a chance to save.
And exactly, and that's just it. And when I get those guys stopped roadside and they're, you know, why are you picking on me? Why are you doing this? And it's like, and I don't want to go too much into faith and all that, but that's got a big part of this is that, you know what, maybe we were meant to bump in today.
Right.
And maybe
there's a reason.
Maybe 10 minutes from now, you would have been going up the road through a green light and that car would have ran that red light in front of you and you'd be involved in an accident. So trying just to think of it in those different ways.
So whenever I know your path a lot, but I don't know if I know every last bit of it, but whenever you graduated high school, did you go straight into the academy?
No. And if we would have bumped into each other, especially in high school and all of that, law enforcement was the last thing I wanted to do. I tried a little bit of.
Well, if I would have met you outside of uniform, I would have guessed law enforcement would be the last profession you were in.
Yeah, you know, hey now.
Well, not that you're bad at it. It's just not your personality.
No.
It's your personality type.
I'm kid. I should have been a comedian, but I know. But no, because there's those different guys. But like I said, I just choose to approach it differently, and hopefully that gets perceived well and received well, and hopefully folks can see that I'm trying to do something
positive.
Worthwhile.
Yeah. And I think that gets lost. Unfortunately, whenever you got a badge on it, you're already categorized as this. And until they get to know you, they know you're a lot different than the stereotypical.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes for not only yourself, but a lot of other law enforcement officers as well.
Oh, yeah. And we've all been there, and we've all got our stories of, you know, getting stopped and getting fussed at or, you know, or whatever. But again, you know, if you look back at some of those cases where, well, he talked a little stern, or he wrote me a ticket, or this. Well, you know what? Again, maybe the day before at that intersection, he cleaned up a bad crash where somebody was hurt or killed, and you're out here doing this exact same thing.
My famous saying is, no matter what the situation, there's always two sides to every story.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
All right. So you've graduated high school in Southern Indiana now. Law enforcement's not even on your radar. So which direction did we have?
Well, I was working at the Southern Indiana famous Holiday World.
You worked at Holiday World?
I guess I did. 8 summers. I was a Holly slave. Yeah, 8 summers. Did the whole red and blue shorts and tacky uniforms and white tennis shoes and all that crap.
Now, just to be clear for the people who listen that may not know, the town you grew up in has a very well-known amusement park, I guess, which is called Holiday World Splash and Safari.
Yeah.
And
I can hear the Beach Boy music and smell the sunscreen now and the 80,000 screaming people. But no, basically, long story short, I started there 14 years old. started as a sweeper. When I left 8 years later, I was the manager over the security department.
Really?
And those last couple of years being in security, working with the Santa Claus Police Department, I became a reserve for Santa Claus Police Department.
So you started gaining a little bit of interest.
Yeah, so I started gaining that traction and realizing it was kind of the direction I wanted to go. So when it came to being in the law enforcement, it was like, hey, there was no, I really didn't want to work for a town or work for a county where it was a little more political. A little more, well, I know the mayor or I know the sheriff or, but in being around state police.
It's never like that in Derby, Indiana.
Well, I've heard a few stories, but maybe another podcast later.
Yeah, that's
we can have one
podcast.
Just the stories.
If we had one with myself and the Sheriff Malone,
oh gosh,
I'm sure one of us would end up in jail, and I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, well, yeah. See, this how he's probably
got the upper hand on me.
Well,
though.
he goes to jail every day.
This is true. This is true. That's the way it works.
But he gets to walk out. But
so before we get off the holiday world part of your life here, I have to know, you have to have one or two good stories from working in holiday world, because that's like working security at Walmart. There's just so many people and so many things going on.
Oh my gosh, you got the so one of the big things was in starting out, security holiday world was kind of an afterthought. We were poorly trained. It was more of a loss prevention aspect. So a typical day was you'd roll in at 8:30. You would roll out to the parking lot by 9, set up road cones, do all that crap, parking cars. And if you ever want or need, or if you're a college student and you need to figure out the dumbest aspect of people in society, go out and direct traffic. And then if you want to add to that, be a Holiday World security person trying to direct traffic. Police officers, you got a badge and gun, so they'll listen to you somewhat. But yeah, be a security agent and trying to. But then we go out there and park cars till noon, and then our job was to come in and roving patrol, and then of course loss prevention, shoplifting, stuff like that. So there was.
Did they give you handcuffs?
Yeah, they did. But looking back, that was scary. That was scary. You give, 17, 18-year-old kids handcuffs and all that stuff. But so we had a few times where shoplifters and stuff like that. And we remember chasing this one weird, like Indian looking dude. He had stole like a $8 necklace out of one of the gift shops, and one of our other, and he, ran out the front gate like a spaz all over an $8 necklace. But like I said, that really spurred the interest in law enforcement. And then I started at USI down at Evansville, and school was like anything else. I mean, some people are good at it, others
It's not their thing.
No, and that's to how I really look at law enforcement. Okay, look at law enforcement is that, and especially the trucks and truck divisions, because another big misconception is every truck driver's not very smart or they weren't capable. But on the contrary, I have met some very smart truck drivers and owners.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Well, I've said I've met, but no. In all reality, Mike, you are a good example of, you're juggling a business owner, juggling the paperwork, trying to juggle. And we had a conversation in the car this morning when we were going to see a demonstration this morning. How you look at all these different folks. And trucking is not really the primary thing, but it is a primary.
Right, it's a necessary part of our job.
Exactly. Your job, you got to have a truck to get your equipment. Logger Wade, he's got to have his trucks to get the wood out and get the equipment. But, what's he really focused on? The timber he's got to do. You look at Farmer Chris, he's farming and doing all this. Well, he's still utilizing trucks.
My famous saying to that is trucking is a necessary evil for my business. It's absolutely 100% essential. I couldn't do without it, but it's not. I do it because I have to, not because I want to. Type type thing.
Exactly. So when it comes to doing it because you're required to do it and doing it because you want to do it, that's where you kind of get that division of mentalities.
Right.
And not saying that but what I'm saying is you got your drivers and company owners, they were born to drive,
Right.
and they know how to do it.
Yeah, that's their lot. They eat, breathe, leave, sleep, everything to do with trucking. We don't.
Absolutely. I mean, they can look at every nut and bolt. They could fix anything on that truck, and those are the drivers that I interact with. And as soon as I walk up to the door, I know that they understand what's going on, that they're at a higher level of understanding, and so I can step it up a notch and do it. And then also got to be smart enough to realize, okay, this person may not be 100% truck. So when I'm asking for certain things and they got that lost look on their face going, okay, well, this is going to be an education moment for them. Yeah, I could sit here and write them 10 tickets, impound the truck and do all that. But at the end of the day, is that really going to teach them? Right.
So got a little bit off subject here, but that's fine. So let's go back to you've left Holiday World now. You're a reserve at the Santa Claus Police Department. You're working security at USI, which is a local college, 45 minutes from your home.
Yep. Started attending USI, never worked security there, but maintained a summer job there at Holiday World. And then got 3 years, was a few credit hours from graduating.
Now, was this in law enforcement?
Well, at the time, the college only had a minor in criminology, so I majored in sociology. So I taken some, law classes, some intro to policing and different things, and basically the Indiana State Police started hiring.
Which is who your father worked for.
Yes. And so then basically it was one of those deals. I thought, you know what? I'm old enough, or I would be old enough when the academy would start. Might as well start applying now, because back then it was pretty dang hard to get accepted.
It was much more competitive.
It was. They're definitely not hurting like they are today. But, you would put out for a class of 40, they'd want to hire 40, and you'd have over 3,000, 3,500 people apply.
That's crazy.
And nowadays, just as society's changed a little bit, it's a little bit harder. But I thought, you know what? I might as well try.
Right.
So.
Well, and you did have a little bit of an inside track.
A little bit, but then just as much as I thought it was an inside, it was also a little bit of
a curse.
A little bit of a curse, and we can get to that. But no. And then basically in late April, I got my April. I graduated in 04, October of 04. So it was April of 2004. I got my acceptance.
So this is your acceptance to the academy?
Yes.
So the police academy, I don't want to go real in depth on this, but just like what's I guess first off, it's put on by the state police, right? So it may vary from state to state.
Yes.
or
Oh, absolutely. Here in the state of Indiana, the Indiana State Police, we host our own academy. There's a basic law enforcement academy for like city officers, county officers, stuff like that. The game wardens, DNR, they host their own academy, and then they also do several weeks with the basic academies. But yes, the Indiana State Police, we host our own academy from day one to last day. It's all Indiana State Police.
Gotcha. So then, what's the academy?
It basically was 22 weeks.
Okay.
A pure hell.
And you live there, don't you?
Yes.
It's like a boot camp style.
It was basically boot camp style. We did get weekends off, so we would wrap up Friday afternoons, and then we would have to report by 5:30 Monday mornings. So a lot of driving from Santa Claus to Plainfield. Did my 22 weeks. Graduated. Was appointed. Basically, that just means I was appointed, full-fledged, hired, and then started my probationary year at Lowell, Indiana. So basically, I went from southern Indiana, Spencer County border in Ohio, to being assigned Lowell district that bordered Lake Michigan.
Yeah,
and
which
Gary.
is pretty close to South Bend, Gary area.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to explain people to the state of Indiana, and I'm sure a lot of states are like this, but the state's taller than it is wide.
Yes, exactly.
So it takes about 5 hours to drive from the southern to the top.
Oh yeah.
And Indianapolis, which is our state capital, is right in the middle.
Right in
and
the
it's
middle.
it's like a line. I don't know if that's where the glacier stopped or what, but it goes from rolling hills and country folk to just 100% flat land.
You got your north of 40 and south of 40. US 40 is the kind of the dividing line, and you're absolutely right. From my apartment driveway to Santa Claus, Indiana, at Trooper Mach speed, I could do about 4.5 hours. But then again, you look at a map and go, where can I get to in 5 hours from Santa Claus? You could get to Gatlinburg, Nashville, Tennessee, and you could get to Gary, Indiana. So
I guess my point of that statement is just because you were in the same state, you were
does
still
not mean
in a whole
does not
new
mean
world.
I could stop by the mom and dad's house for dinner. But no, I did my first year and a half. My first year as probationary trooper, basically the United States Police. The first year you go through your FDO, field training officer period, for about 4 or 5 months, and then you get, basically, if you pass that, you start your probationary year, which probationary basically means if I screwed up, they could come in and I could be terminated without cause for any reason.
Gotcha.
But,
So they're trying to kind of make sure you got what it takes.
yeah, and it is a fail safe. If they get somebody that's really goofy or really going to be a problem child, they can eliminate that. But,
And sometimes, I guess in the police department, you really don't know that until a guy's out doing this thing.
Exactly, because once and that's just it. And through the training, the interviews, and polygraph test and psychological test, they're wanting somebody that is basically going to do the right thing when nobody's looking.
Right.
That's the big thing. The integrity. Kind of the joke is integrity, service, professionalism. But they're wanting somebody that's going to do the right thing when nobody's looking.
So you were up in Lowell for a year or so?
Yeah, almost a year and 7 months. While I was up there, exposed a little bit of everything. It was good to kind of get away, kind of make a name.
Would you say
for myself?
Would you say it was good to make that name in a community where you were not associated with a family or you know what I mean, kind of outside of your community?
Yes, and it was nice because I wasn't known as Hoover's boy or Sergeant Hoover's kid or anything. I was kind of able to kind of make my way.
Pull over Johnny and Johnny's mom calls and says, "Hey, we're family friends," or something like that.
exactly, and that kind of gave some time to separate and do stuff like that. But
now, if I remember correctly, you were up there for about a year, and then you got transferred to the local post, which would have been Jasper.
Yes. After about a year and 8 months, I got to transfer back home to Jasper. Relocated back into Jasper District. Lived in Ferdinand for basically
during
2 years.
This period, I don't know what the proper terminology is, but you were basically a traffic cop. Just worked the road.
Basically, I was enforcement. So enforcement was I was answering the alarm calls, taking reports for broken mailboxes and different things like that. Working suicide cases, theft cases, stuff like that. And real quickly, I learned I did not like criminal investigation. And one nice thing about the state police is we are so diverse that if you get somebody that's good, a trooper that's good with educating or firearms or DT, you can become an instructor. You can get on the SWAT team.
So you can kind of go down a path.
You can go down that path. Bomb squad, scuba. I mean, we are so diverse. And I started real quickly, especially when I was up at Lowell. I befriended a family that owned a wrecker service. So I was in the back of my head, I always liked trucks and stuff like that, and getting to know them that own the wrecker business. I got to really work close to them and learned a lot. So that really started kind of fostering my interest in our CVET, our Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division. I liked the idea of working with some school buses. But at the time, that was a limited division with limited. It was very, very hard to get into that division.
So you worked the road in Jasper for, I guess, probably a couple of years there as well.
Yeah, at least 3.5, almost 3.5 years to add on my year and a half, and then unfortunately they laid off a bunch of our civilian motor carrier staff.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know how to explain that, and I don't know other states may or may not have that, but there still is some today.
Yeah.
I seen one the other day, but basically in Indiana you got state troopers like yourself that are CVED certified, or we call you DOT cops.
Yep.
And then the department also hires individuals to basically just do truck inspections for them.
Yes.
So they don't do anything else but inspect trucks for the state.
Absolutely. They're sworn in as civilians. They have very limited enforcement powers. Their enforcement powers focus on commercial vehicle enforcement, size, weight, and manning the scale house facilities. So at the time, we had over 80 motor carriers throughout the state.
And a lot of them did work in the scale houses because they just bring trucks through.
Oh,
and then if you had one overweight, you'd flag it around back, and a gentleman like yourself would take care of it.
Absolutely. And then we had just a handful of troopers that were cross-certified to look at trucks and inspect trucks. And then, unfortunately, with the budget crunch and all that in 2008, 2009, it just really hit the state financially. So they eliminated over half of the MCI division, and then they basically brought in road troopers. And with that, each district they basically put out a memo, said each district needs to supply 2 to 3 individuals from your enforcement ranks to fill commercial trucks. And I'd always had an interest, so I quickly volunteered, and that freed up guys from getting voluntold to go.
Gotcha.
So
because it's something you had showed into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was something I was really kind of wanting to get into and explore and
I think
find out more.
I think that's one thing that makes you good at your job, is because it's actually something you're semi-passionate about versus the guy that said you're going to go inspect trucks whether you want to or not.
Exactly. And that's like with anything, if someone got up tomorrow and told you you're going to have to go to the sawmill and process wood all day, it's not going to be a happy camper. So same thing with being told, well, you're going to get up into force-only trucks, and you take a guy that doesn't know the difference between a Mack and a Freightliner, Kenworth, and all that.
Dump truck and a tanker.
Yeah, dump truck and a tanker, and what a farmer does and all that. But so you nailed that exactly on the head. And we can sit here for hours, and that's kind of some of how we can talk. Well, Officer B doesn't really seem too happy.
Right.
Maybe because he was.
I've been stopped by a few Officer Bs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as far as the state, I mean, did they provide training for this?
Oh, absolutely. So in January, like I said, of 2009, I started the training. Basically, that was about 2.5, almost 3 months. During that time frame, I went through size, weight, learned how to do the portable scales, learned how to properly weigh a truck, went through Part A, Part B.
And this is all in-house within the state,
in-house. Right? So what Part A, Part B is? Part A is basically hours of service of commercial motor vehicles, learning about CDLs. This is the federal training that's required for us to be federally certified to enforce the federal regulations. Because when it comes to truck enforcement, and basically the way the state of Indiana is, there's federal regulations. State of Indiana passed a state law that says whatever this book says, we're going to adopt into our
instead
code.
of writing their own book, they just adopted the federal
Exactly. And some states, they write their own regulations and only incorporate certain things from federal books. So that's why sometimes it's hard for me to answer questions, and I always leave it the tagline, this is what Indiana is.
Right.
And something I know we've talked about before is mud flaps.
Yep.
And me and you have talked, Indiana doesn't really have a mud flap law.
Yep.
And the federal regulations don't really have anything about mud flaps.
You talk to somebody from Pennsylvania or New York, and they get tickets right and left for mud flaps.
Yeah, or a perfect example, Missouri's, and I've seen it myself. I've held the document in my hand. It's a 6-page document on how their mud flaps are supposed to be. I mean, if a truck is this wheelbase and all this, so many inches off the ground, and it's incredibly silly.
Complicated for nothing.
It is, but again, with that big separation of federal and state laws, so with that, Part A covers hours service, CDLs, medical cards. Part B is more of the fun stuff, the mechanical stuff and that's the training we go
Mechanics of a
through.
truck.
Exactly. Explain how brakes work, explain how suspensions, steering, all that is looked at and inspected. So then went through that training and then.
So how long did this training, is this something you get certified in 6 weeks, 6 months, a year?
The whole training was done like at our CVED headquarters in about 6 to 8 weeks. And then basically we went out in the field for basically the next 2 months.
Gotcha.
We got with certified personnel. And the way the federal guidelines is if you go through a Part A or Part B course, you got to go out and do 32 inspections with a certified inspector. And then they sign off that, yeah, you know what you're doing. And then you're basically certified from that point
Gotcha.
forward.
So the, I guess, how do I want to say this? So now we're a certified inspector, and you're still back in your home area at this time, correct?
Yes. So back in my home area, finally got my dream job. I'm getting to work with trucks, but then again, it's a big learning curve because, and I'll be the first to say, and to this day, or at present time, I'm a certified Part B instructor with the feds. So I go out and I teach new instructors, and you cannot teach them everything they need to know in 4.5 days.
Well, no, you've been doing it for 16 years, and you're still learning stuff every day.
Absolutely. And there's been many phone calls where I use my contacts, such as yourself. I've called you in the past and been like, hey, Mike, how's this work?
Yeah.
Should this be doing this? Or, and you use your experience as a mechanic. And that's another thing. I call my record buddies. I call you. I've got different, contacts I've made that they realize it's a two-way street,
right.
and they respect me for reaching out and trying to learn it and know it right compared to maybe that guy that's not as interested in it.
Gotcha. So I know this is the part of the podcast you're just loving to talk about.
Oh,
so now that you're
a
certified DOT officer,
what am I looking for?
That's how we become friends.
Exactly, that is. So yeah, it had probably been, I'd say, a little over a year since I got my certification. I was patrolling State Road 60 in at 66.
66,
yeah. State Road 66 there between Tell City and Troy, and I noticed this green truck coming at me with I think you just had your maybe like small tractor on a gooseneck trailer.
As far as the people who know me on YouTube, this was my first. Well, actually, it was my second dump truck. It was the first one that was actually worthy enough to go on the road. Yeah. So it's a good thing you didn't see the first one.
The first.
We may not be friends.
Well, but we were both coming of age and figuring out what we were doing.
Both trying to figure something. That's a good way to put it. We were both trying to figure it out.
Exactly. We were both new to our prospective industry.
So I'm going to try to paint a picture of this. This thing was an FL70 Freightliner that started off life as a Penske truck. I had shortened the frame, painted it green, built a homemade dump bed for it. I couldn't afford a trailer, so I cut a hole in the dump bed and was pulling my grandpa's gooseneck trailer, and I had the 655 John Deere chained down on the back of it.
Improperly, but we'll get to that.
Just can't help yourself, can you? I'm rolling through town. I had filed for my DOT number. I had my what's Mike Pride do, the DOT safety.
Yeah, the new entrant audit. Yep.
I'd come from a dealership where we dealt with some DOT stuff as far as the annuals and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'll be the first to admit I had tried to educate myself, but I was a far cry from being educated. I knew the basics, I knew the ins and the outs, but I knew I wasn't legal. Let's just put it that way. So we're cruising through town, and at this point, in our area, DOT was few and far between.
Yeah.
It wasn't a common occurrence to run across.
It was definitely an area
that's
people had grown accustomed, and that there wasn't much truck enforcement being done.
So I'm driving through town. I see this state police car, and I'm like, that one don't look like the rest. So I pull in the Walmart parking lot. I'm like, we'll just let this guy go on down the road. We'll hide up here in Walmart. Yeah. So, Captain, go ahead.
We'll pause there. So, like I said, you've heard he's the innocent little guy hauling his excavator to church and all that. And he sees me and is like, So, and I see him and I'm like, Yeah. So we're both doing the, that's interesting thing. So yeah, I flip around and I'm like, I'm going to go stop that truck. Wait a minute, where'd he go? Is he turning? He's going up the hill to the Walmart parking lot.
Did you actually see me turn into Walmart, or did you see me in Walmart?
I saw you pulling up the hill, so I was like, I got a runner. I got a runner.
I don't know.
but like that's where you go. Hey, there's two sides to every story. This is. So
yeah. So anyways,
we pull up we'll do the pause.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I pulled up in the Walmart parking lot hoping you wouldn't know where I went. I wouldn't say I was running. I wouldn't say I was hiding.
No,
I was just strategically placing my truck in a parking spot.
Exactly, towards the rear of the building,
behind in the loading dock.
Yeah.
So anyways, here we are with this truck, and we park in the parking lot, and it didn't take a lot of searching. You found us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's me and Captain Kleeman. Captain Kleeman's riding with me. So you pull up behind us, and I told Captain, I said, we're in trouble. I said, this truck's in the worst shape it's been since I owned it. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, we got a steer tire out of service. I said, we got a brake line leaking back here. I know that train on that tractor's loose. I said, the only saving grace we got, Captain, is I think my paperwork's good.
I think I have a valid CDL.
So anyways, we're sitting in the truck, and you come up, and I think you introduced yourself. And, I mean, I could tell right off the bat you weren't there to take us to jail. And you asked me a few questions, and one of the questions you asked me, you said, what were you doing at Walmart?
Yeah. Where were you going? Well, and I've always done this with my law enforcement career. Anytime I make approach, I'm not hopped up. I'm not screaming and yelling. I talk. I ask you how you're doing. I ask this, and yeah, I get, well, I was doing good till you stopped me, and it's like. I just see that as a challenge to really turn it. Right. But no, from the get-go, it was like, where were you going? And you're like, well, I kind of was hoping you'd keep, But yeah, we had a good rapport from the...
I said this in somewhat of a joking manner, but I think my response was, I knew you were going to do an inspection.
Yeah.
I just thought it was safer to do it in the parking lot. I was thinking of you, buddy.
Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much, concerned citizen. I appreciate that. By the way, I would like to do a truck inspection. May I see all your stuff, please?
Yeah, and then, of course, you asked for the paperwork, and I think I asked to get out of the truck because it was easier to lay it out on the trailer, and you said that's fine.
Yeah.
So I laid all the paperwork out, and I think the first thing was you were surprised I even had paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like I said, up until that point in that area, there was not much truck enforcement being done.
And then I think from there you said I'm going to do a level 1, which is pretty much a full truck inspection.
Yep, full truck inspection. And, I figured we were in this very nice open parking lot.
Yeah, I mean,
off the
I set you up perfectly.
Exactly. So,
and I think, and jump in here, and if I say something that is not true or not the way I remember it, but I think I said, okay, that's fine. Here's what's wrong with the truck. And I told you about the steer tire. I told you about the brake leaking. I think I may have had a light. There was two or three fairly major items on there. And you said, okay, fine. That's, great. Thanks. And I think you did a full inspection on it. We were probably there for 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And if I recollect right, there was a couple really small items that I maybe not have mentioned, but all the big major items I told you about.
Yeah.
So I think that showed you that I did pay attention to the truck.
Exactly. And a lot of that goes a long way. And to this day, when I come, I'm notorious for having my little yellow notepad in my left hip pocket, and I'll approach that truck and I'm already looking. And if I'm finding a long list of items and I go up and hey, driver, did you do a pre-trip this morning? And I tell my local guys, if I'm asking you, if I don't remember you and I come up and I'm asking first thing, did you do a pre-trip this morning? You're probably, just be honest, and to me, I just be honest. I mean, tell me, have you not looked over the truck lately? Have you, but the guys that sit there and go, oh yeah, I inspected it. There is nothing wrong with this truck. And I'm going, yeah, but you're missing a left brake light. your trailer tires
And it
bald.
obviously wasn't
You've
missing
gotta-
since this morning.
Yeah, there's mud kicked in the rubber grommet, and I've done many of, let's redneck engineer this. If this bolt is shiny, probably means it's, if it's rusty, it probably means it's been there like that for a while. So, but yeah, you were one, real cordial. Two, you followed instructions because. And what I
think that's a big one.
And what I mean by that is just basic officer safety. When it comes to dealing with anyone in law enforcement, our first and foremost is we're going to go home at night.
Right.
And I've had this encounter here in the last few months. It's just, people want to sit there and argue, or people want to. But what it is, there's a time to argue later in court. If you've got a problem, take it to court. Argue then, but
and it's the simplest things of like asking permission to get out of the truck.
Yeah.
Or
say, hey, I got a jumble of paperwork. Care if I get out and lay it on the thing?
Right.
Some officers, go right ahead. Other officers may go, no, I just want you to stay in the truck. Don't get bent out of shape.
Yeah.
And my biggest pet peeve here lately is I've told two individuals, and I've had to fuss at them, and yell at them. I said, keep your hands out of your pockets. First thing they do is start reaching in their pockets, or don't reach around, and they start to reach around. And I'm like, what did I just ask you to do?
Right.
It's not that I'm trying to be mean or rude. I don't know. So always think of officer safety.
Right.
Think of your safety, just because. So I just want to kind of underline that. But real quick, I mean, we were able to strike up an easy rapport. When I was doing the truck inspection, everything you had told me I found. So that told me, hey, at least I've got something to work with here.
Right.
And I don't think I wrote any tickets that day.
No, I think what you ended up doing is the steer tire was bad, but I don't want to make it sound like you let something crazy going down the road. I mean, it was just like right there.
It was right there.
And,
a little bit of cord showing, but
no, it wasn't no cord showing.
No, it wasn't cord showing.
You're telling on yourself more than you're telling on me. So in the brake caliper that was leaking, it's not like it was gushing oil, not leaking.
No,
it was just showing seeping. So
yeah.
You basically told me, I think there was 5 items on that list that
Immediate.
you needed immediate service.
Repairs.
A couple of them was just a link in a safety chain, and one of them was the tractor wasn't chained down right. But the steer tire and the brake were the two big ones.
Yeah.
May have been the light on the trailer not working. So I think exactly what you told me is this is what we're going to do for you today, Mike. I'm going to write you 5 warnings. I want you, and I told you, and the truth was, I was actually on the way to the auto parts store to pick up the brake caliper. It was sitting on the parts bench.
Yeah.
And you said, I'm going to write you 5 warnings. I want you to get these things fixed and call me.
Yeah.
And I said, great, sounds good. And of course, I'm like, oh my God. So I run to the parts store, run to the tire shop, I go to the house. And anyways, I end up, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, I called you and I said, here's the tire, here's the brakes, here's this. I think we're good to go. And you're like, that's awesome. And somewhere in that conversation, I said I had bought a Mack truck out of a junkyard. I'd bought a trailer out of a junkyard, and I was trying to piece them back together. And I just said, hey, I got this truck that's not on the road yet that I want to put on the road. Would you be interested in coming out to the shop, looking it over? And I wanted to get ahead of these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you were more than gracious enough to do that. You ended up coming out to the shop, and we went over the truck and the trailer, and I think you ended up looking at the truck. You stopped, and I think that's where our friendship kind of started off at, because you were there at the shop for several hours, and
definitely.
And at this point, you were living pretty close to. We were living about 30 minutes apart.
Yeah, and we just kind of struck up that mutual friendship, and then.
Well, and I mean, you were a huge help and asset to me. I like to think I was a small help because you knew what the state had taught you to check on trucks. Like, I'm going to use an inner wheel seal for an example. I had an inner wheel seal leaking on the trailer. You're like, I want to come out and help change it. I know how to check it, but I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that probably spurred, because I was sitting there going, man, I would love to see this done, but I don't want to even think I'm a weirdo. You know, I don't want to, but I was kind of like, can I come watch you do this?
I'm like, sure, if you bring the parts.
Okay, yeah. So, and I'd forgotten about that too. You mentioned that, but yeah, that kind of started that link of like, hey,
Well, and one thing you've always been outstanding at doing is you realize we have a job to do. You just want us to do it safely.
Exactly.
I want my family goes up and down the road with these trucks. I want them to be safe. I want somebody out there inspecting them. But you also see we're trying to make a living too. And, you know, sitting on the side of the road for a goofy out of service is not going to benefit anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, a lot of it comes common sense. I always tell people, you know, there's the federal book, there's law book, there's good book, there's book of common sense. Which one are we going to use?
Yeah, well, the book of common sense has been hit underneath a lot of those ones for a while.
It has been, and I'm not saying that, you know, if there's something that's truly an out of service that I'm just going to overlook it, but we're going to find you a little bit easier way. Instead of placing you out of service, writing you that additional $150 ticket, if it's not something that's directly safety related, like, you know, and I give this example, if a driver's license is suspended or whatever, I'm sorry, that's an automatic ticket. You know, my hands are tied on that one. But if there's a tire that's some cord showing and technically you're out of service on that, yeah, I'm going to list it as an out of service. But am I going to necessarily, if you're 5 miles down the road,
keep you from getting there?
Keep you there, you know, and make you pay for a tire service. So,
and I think this is a good time to point out a lot of that's going to be based on the attitude of the truck driver.
Absolutely.
Because if the attitude of the truck driver is not good, you're going to be sitting on the side of the road.
And I've had those examples to where, you know, you know, on the down low, I've told a guy, listen, you know, just get it fixed. And then there's others. You are here. You are out of service. And I'm going to sit in that parking lot and wait for that service truck to come.
I will wait you out.
I will wait you out, and I will see you in a month in court for when you come to. But again, a lot of it's just driver attitude, and the first appearance and approach is just paramount. I mean, I could sit here all day with different stories.
So, you know, obviously after that, you spent a lot of time up at the shop. We spent a lot of time together until you moved away a couple years later. And I think one of the things that by far sets you apart from a lot of the others on the road is, I don't know if it's through our relationship and several other relationships, but you've seen the disconnect in our ability to get information, and you really started going down the training route of helping people be compliant.
Exactly. And like you said in the beginning, you were kind of ahead of the game in the fact that you'd been around some things at the dealership. You had been around some other things. But you get somebody that just starts out fresh, that's a big mess trying to figure that out.
The paperwork involved in running a truck legally up and down the road is insane.
And a perfect example, when our road trip down here, you've been getting good and you were calling out violations. And then, you know, I'm starting to quiz you more on, well, where's that? Where exactly is that in the book? You know, what code is that?
I haven't read the book. I've had it recited by Hoover.
Yeah, you've had it recited by me. But there's that perfect example. You know, you get out there, you know it probably is a violation. You don't know the specifics on it. You don't know where it's at. You don't know where it applies. But then you get stopped and you get told, well, this is a violation. This is an out of service. And here's your ticket. And you're going to sit here until you fix it. And then we drive off. And then you're sitting there going,
I don't understand.
What? You know, this guy just stopped me and said, I'm hauling 40-foot long boards. And he said, I need more straps. But wait a minute, what? You know.
You got to have 2 in the first 10 and 1 every 10. And then you got to cover the weight.
Cover the weight and every fraction thereof. Every fraction thereof.
See, I'm getting so close.
You are like that B+ student that's almost to that 8 minus.
At least I'm out of the ticket zone and I'm into the possible warnings.
Yeah. Oh no, you're out of the possible warning now. You're getting into like Nova, but no, and that's that, you know, and I saw that disconnect, and it started just kind of gradually, you know, Facebook.
And you actually started off with a private page.
Yeah, I started off with a private page, and then I got in trouble with the department, different Facebook or policies and stuff like that. But basically, my thing behind it was, and really, if you look back around that time, not very many law enforcement was doing anything with social media.
No.
So it was one of those deals on my private page, Brent Hoover. You know, I was sharing like, hey, here's a loose bolt. Here's what you can do to look for it. And then more guys, and then there was one particular driver that was pretty popular on Facebook that I happened to stop. He had a real nice looking truck, and stopped him, and I said, "Hey, you care if I share a picture on Facebook?" And he's like, "No, go right ahead, add me." And I added him, and then when it shared, and all of a sudden, he was well known in the trucking industry, and all of a sudden, he got stopped by this DOT guy from Indiana, and he was like, "No, this guy's real cool and helped me," and was a real stand-up guy. Then the Facebook friend request started adding, and then just kind of over time, and then
and you kind of wanted to get away from having some of that on your personal page.
Yeah,
because that's your personal page. You got your personal stuff on there, so that's where the Facebook group. Can we say the name of it?
Yeah,
The original Facebook was called Hoover Club.
Hoover Club, and
it got popular fast.
Yeah, and basically it was called Hoover Club, more or less. I heard it over the CB, because I'd stopped a driver and another
truck
driver.
Drivers are definitely good for one thing, and it's nicknames.
And nicknames, handles, all that good stuff. But I had released a driver, let him go down the road. Another driver goes, "Hey, everything okay?" He goes, "Yeah, I just joined the club." And he goes, "The club?" He goes, "Yeah, that Hoover guy stopped me." So that's kind of where the Hoover Club, started. It was kind of on the download. The department didn't really know about it or hear about it. And then,
I don't think you had any clue it was going to blow up the way it was.
And it went from 300 people to woke up next morning, it was close to 2,500, and it was like, what the heck? And then within a month's time, it was up over 8,000, and then. That's when somebody called the local news media, and they wanted to do a story about how I was reaching out. And then I got a phone call from my headquarters. It was like, hold the phone. What are you doing?
Yeah, which is a real shame, and that's a whole nother conversation. But
it is, and there's policies, and I'll be honest, I violated Facebook policies because I was sharing images of state police vehicles and this and that.
But you wish somebody could have pulled out that common sense book and maybe read between the lines a little bit.
It would have been nice, but thankfully I was in a position, and I had some superiors that knew me well enough to know that I was not looking at any personal gain. Right. It was an education.
So it was 100% for us. You had nothing to gain from it.
Yeah, I did not have anything to gain from it. I think their biggest issue was they found out about it. They were kind of hesitant. And then somebody asked about, hey, can we have like a Hoover Club shirt or something like that? And then that's when they were like, no, stomp the brakes. You can't be doing that. And then they were like, you know what, just shut it down. And then I had a really good major at the time that knew, but yet was still hesitant of social media. But I was able to get the Facebook
so
page
basically
approved.
The Hoover Club got shut down.
Yeah.
And we went about 8 months?
Close to 6 to 8 months.
With nothing.
With nothing. And a lot of memos, a lot of worrying about myself, and
I don't even know if you even know this, but me and Wade, I think, both wrote a letter on your behalf.
Oh,
I forgot. We got the wasn't Steve Bartels at the time. It was Lloyd Arnold was the state representative for us at the time, and we got a hold of him, and he says, you need to write a letter to this guy. And we did, just basically saying that, hey, this guy's trying to do good. He's a huge help. He's a huge asset to the state. He's a huge asset to us. You need to find a way for him to be able to continue on. Not saying our letter had anything to do with anything.
Well, I tell you what, that I'm speechless on that. That's the first I've ever heard of that. But
fortunately, through everybody's effort and you continuing to lobby yourself behind the scenes, they approved you to basically operate a state page, which is the Indiana CVED
Indiana
page.
State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division. And that page, basically, I was able to relaunch that.
Which was basically the new version of the Hoover Club.
Yeah. I was still able to do the same thing, tips and tricks on how to basically improve, because my little saying was, you learn these tips and tricks to improve your, inspection.
Right.
Because what do we got to gain?
Well,
Safety,
it was also an avenue for drivers that had a question mark to be able to, they were comfortable to come there and ask.
Exactly, because I made it one of those situations, and early on with the Hoover Club stuff and this, I'm like, and the way I tried to present the material was at no point like say I stopped a truck and he had a fuel leak or something. I was not about going, well, I stopped truck from Z Trucking.
Dirt Perfect Trucking or whatever.
Dirt Perfect Trucking, driver Mike Simon, at this location, here's his plate. You know, I did, because there was too many things, you know, some police social media was starting out, and it was a lot of just look at who we caught and look what he was doing.
Right.
And I didn't really care for that.
Right.
I was looking more for, hey, on today's stop, I discovered a fuel leak. Here's things to look for.
Well, I know the page has changed a lot over the last couple of years, but I remember the early days of it. And me and Cleveland were talking about this the other day. You would just post a picture of something random, like a broken spring or a loose fifth wheel bolt or a leaky wheel hub. And you just say, hey, maybe look at this a little extra longer today. Or we would see it and say, hey, we'll maybe take a little closer look at that this time around the trip.
Exactly. And that was so rewarding because, I mean, the Hoover Club, the Facebook page, it just, I mean, I was getting people from Norway, England, Scotland,
right,
Australia were noticing this and just loving it, you know, and exactly.
It ended up being a porthole for some unbelievable, awesome information, you know.
It really was. It still is today, which it's kind of skimmed off here lately, and that's a whole nother story. But it was really an avenue, and I really prided myself on, I want you to be able to come here and ask a question.
Right. And not be judged, not feel like, I remember that guy asking about this. I need to go check that truck out.
I'm writing down Scott Brown because Scott Brown asked about bad brakes. So no, it was an avenue for them to feel comfortable to ask questions. And two, I didn't realize it at the time, but the amount of extra studying and helping it did for me.
Right, because you got to ask the oddball questions.
Oh, absolutely. And on the truck ride down, I had a couple phone calls that you know, and it would go, hey, I've got a question on a kingpin. Can whatever. And that would force me to go and look it up, read it. And then, you know, that knowledge base I have today, I really, you still have for the years of looking that stuff up and really diving deep. And two, you know, if somebody asks something, because the world of DOT enforcement, it's like a big, you know, like a big pie. I mean, you got your roadside enforcement, you got your hazmat, you got all these different slices. Well, I've got just a quarter to 2/3 of the pie.
Right.
That I feel comfortable. And there's other areas that I don't deal with day to day. So even those oddball questions come in, I still had assets and folks that I could email and contact and find out those answers for.
Now, the Facebook page, if you guys want to check it out, it's still up and operating today.
Yes.
I guess, you know, everything's changes, policy changes, a little more restrictive, but the basis of the page is still there.
The basis is still there.
You still post stuff. You can still go there and contact yourself and get information.
Yes, if you go there and hit send a message, it's going to come straight to my phone.
To you.
And you're going to be talking to me.
And I'll do my best to link your Facebook page in the description so that way we can just bombard you with all kinds of questions because we know you.
Well, and I tell you what would be really cool. I have been at like 39,800 for like the last year, and I would love to get over 40,000. But I think what it is, I had that period of not much was posted, of course, with COVID, and really, I can only post the same picture so many times, and people get tired. But it's really opened up a lot of avenues.
I can send you a picture to post, and then people go to my YouTube channel and blow me up. Did you see what Officer Hoover did? I'm like, yeah, I sent him the picture.
That's me.
I told on myself.
Yeah, exactly. And even when I try to hijack an image from your channel,
from YouTube,
they're like, "Oh, this is on Dirt Perfect's page," and I'm like, "Dang it, I didn't want to embarrass him, but it was good material."
But outside of social media, you also do on-site trainings for the state. I know Longer Wade and myself have had you in Derby several times to do some trainings for the local farmers and stuff. You go into companies and do trainings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was something else that, again, there was no avenue for companies that if they wanted someone to come in and just talk with drivers about
Because a lot of
inspections.
companies want to do the right thing.
They do. And of course, we could sit here and talk about CSA and all that, how it impacts, but that's for another day. But yeah, and there for a good while, it seemed like I was all over the state doing what we call PIOs, presentations for companies, talking about safety inspections, talking about things, talking about load securement, hours of service, license plates, registrations, just answer. And then when you can get out, and again, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but I try to have the personality
Well, you're approachable.
to be approachable, because these guys, and I kind of joke with people, and I do tell certain companies, I crack jokes. I try to make these guys laugh, because I am not going to stand up there, be rigid.
Right.
Already
just recite a bunch of
laws and codes, and if I got to crack a few jokes or show a funny little YouTube snippet or something to get them
at
loosened
my
up.
expense.
Well, hey, in your bit, but yeah, but
I put it out there. It's free for the world to see and use. So, so we're going to probably wrap this up here a little bit. But what I want to wrap up with in conclusion is the DOT, and you kind of touched on it with the pie. It is so layered. There is so many things. I know you and I did a video on load securement. We could go into axle weights. We could go into tire weights. We could go into permitting. We can go into licensing. We can go into numbers, paperwork. I mean, I think all these are probably very viable podcast options. And hopefully, we will do more of these. I guess the question for the audience is what avenues do you want us to go down for first?
What do you want to see? That type of thing. And I just appreciate it, because and I get this a lot. Well, I saw you on Dirt Perfect's channel, and I got a question about this.
I think it's worth pointing out, though. You have been on other large channels. Tractor Time with Tim comes to mind. You did make an appearance on Let's Dig 18.
I guess a little bit.
You got recognized on the side of the road the other day from Let's Dig 18's channel.
Yeah, that was interesting.
But and then obviously you do your own social media stuff,
but yeah, and I'm kind of limited there. But don't working with you guys, doing this outreach, letting guys that can relate to you see that maybe not all DOT is woven from the same cloth.
And there's I know you're not one of a kind. I know there's other officers out there like you. I just hope that they come forward and are able to help do some of the same things in other places. Yeah.
And like I said, as we conclude here, the biggest thing is, if you're out and about, you get stopped, just give us the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
Attitude. Think about officer safety, and try to have, you could be having the worst day ever, but you know what? Don't treat that officer like that, because he could add on to that.
Yeah, and you don't know if he just come from a horrific crash or something else and then pulled up on you. So.
Exactly.
Well, Officer Hoover, absolute privilege and honor to have you on here. Appreciate you kind of telling a little bit of your story of how you got to where you're at, a little bit of how we met, and we will definitely do this again and go in depth and elaborate on some stuff. So just have everybody comment down below and kind of let us know what you guys may want to see next. And I'll link your Facebook page in, so if you guys got any questions, he's an absolute wealth of knowledge. And I think with that, we'll wrap her up. So
hey, thank you very much, and look forward to
greatly appreciate it. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Be safe.